API Conference, Elevating API Literacy.
But yeah, for those who were not here earlier in the morning, I'll reintroduce myself because I already did an introduction earlier. My name is Gbadebo Bello. Uh, I work as a developer advocate at Postman. How many of us know or use Postman here? How many of us know or use Postman? Okay, that's a lot of hands. Okay, that's a lot of hands, which is really encouraging and good for me. Uh, so I'm here to talk about building better APIs together with Postman. And shortly, I'll tell you, and shortly, I'll go into details uh, regarding what that means. Sorry, my screen sort of took over. So I'll just mirror my screen instead. Okay, I apologize for the technical difficulties again. So I'm Gbadebo Bello. I work as a developer advocate at an API company called Postman. Um, I like to tell people that I love food a lot. Uh, but when I say that, people think that I'm talking about quantity, but I'm really referring to quality and trying out new cuisines. And I often like to refer to myself as an untrained and unprofessional photographer. Because people tell me I take great pictures, even though I don't think I actually do. But yeah, I have like a DJI Mini. But I have like a DJI Mini 3 drone that I use for aerial photography, and I'm extremely passionate about communities and community building. I've devoted a huge chunk of my time over the last couple of years doing community work. And I also happen to be one of the organizers of this conference. I love to travel and explore new places, and yeah, I attached like a couple of pictures of some of my travel adventures recently across like different states to different places. I'd have loved to talk a little about some of these places, but I don't have time, so I'll just keep that. So yeah, when we think about APIs, oftentimes collaboration is not the first thing that comes to our mind, right? But collaboration is a key and fundamental part of building APIs. You rarely ever have any developer working in isolation when working in a team and building an API. It's usually you liaising with it's usually you liaising with key stakeholders. It's usually you liaising with key stakeholders and people who are responsible for different things. Either you're liaising with the product manager to understand what's going into the API and how it should respond to certain scenarios. You're working with other engineers to get things built out, or you're working with the technical writers to get like a technical documentation out for that API. So either you're producing or consuming an API, you need to either you are consuming or producing an API, you need to collaborate with external stakeholders. You need to collaborate with external stakeholders. So a lot of times I figured out that developers build APIs for their team instead of build APIs with their team. There's a clear difference between both. Although in both scenarios, collaboration happens. And the collaboration is in quotes. Because when you are building APIs for your team, collaboration, there's a lot of friction, there's a lot of bottlenecks. You're not really building the APIs with your team. So I'm going to be giving a scenario, and I'll be using myself and Sadiq as a use case. So who here knows this guy called Asha Kine? I mean, we're on social media. You know him for his philanthropy and giveaways. So the scenario here is an API as a service, a giveaway API as a service, which is essentially what our company is building. And we'll be doing that giveaway live here while on stage. So I'm an engineering manager at a company called Asha Kind, not Asha Kind, because we are kind and love to give things out. And Sadiq is also collaborating with me on this API as a software engineer at Asha Kind. And we'll be working through this demo together. But we don't have a lapel mic, but I need someone to help me with the microphone because I need to do like a demo. Can someone please volunteer? Okay. Yeah, thank you so much, Stephen. Please, you can drop this. So because of my time, I'm going to run through this real quick. So we're collaborating on an API. And when you're collaborating on an API, the first thing is someone has to first start writing the code, right? And then you onboard another engineer. Perhaps you're using GitHub for code collaboration. But GitHub doesn't really work for API collaboration. It works when you're like writing the code, but when you want to collaborate on the API along different things, I'll show you an example of what I mean. So, two scenarios here. When you see the white screen, that's Sadiq. And when you see the black screen, that's me. It's both of us collaborating within Postman. But when you see the black team, that's Sadiq. That's me. And when you see the white team, that's Sadiq. So we go ahead and write our code. You don't have to care about what's in this code. Just know that there are two endpoints. One to request for a giveaway, and one to view the list of people who have requested for a giveaway. So I onboard Sadiq to this API, and Sadiq wants to understand what's going on here. And he's like, okay, this is a bunch of code. How do I test this? And I'm like, okay, there's this markdown file that I wrote that I'm using to quickly test things, spending the time that the technical writer comes in to give us a very clear documentation on these different endpoints and what they do. So I go to the markdown file, and I can see that, okay, there's a markdown file here that maybe looks auto-generated, and there's a post request to a giveaway endpoint. There's another get request to a giveaway endpoint. How do I test this? And I'm saying that, oh, there's a call request here. Then I copy this call request. I ensure that my server is running. I copy the call request on the terminal, and I run it. And I'm getting an error. And it's telling me there's something wrong on line position 103. But this JSON looks like it's just 10 lines. It's not 103 lines, right? But it's at position 103, and the error is very obvious, isn't it? Then I have to spend a couple of minutes trying to figure out where that error is. I'll fix that and try it again before I'm able to get maybe a 200 OK response. But let's do this a different way. Let's do this within the Postman interface. So let's say while I was testing this API and while I was building it out, I'm building different... Sorry, are you able to hear me? So let's say while I was building this API, I'm in a Postman, a very familiar interface for a lot of you who have used Postman. And I'm in something called a Postman workspace, which I believe a lot of people here are familiar with. I immediately have the option of creating a new request, either an HTTP request, a GraphQL request, a gRPC request, a WebSocket, a socket tie, or an MQTT request. But because this is an HTTP API, I'm going to select HTTP as my option. And I've already pre-configured something called environments, where I'm putting all my environment variables here for this demo. And it's the same thing I'll do when I'm collaborating with Sadiq so that it doesn't have to set that up himself. He understands the different environments I need, and he just has to fill in the variables. So I have a base URL, endpoint. I have a base URL here, and I have a /giveaway endpoint. And I hit send. My server is not running. And I hit send. Okay, this is /get/giveaways. That's my bad. Then I hit send. And I get that first moment of truth. I'm getting a 200 OK response, which should ideally make every developer happy. And because I'm getting a 200 OK response, it means that my time to first call just reduced from spending 5-10 minutes in debugging a core URL to a couple of seconds where I just have to click a button and get an API response to test this. Then I want to take this a step further and validate that I'm always getting a 200 OK response. So I go to the script tab, and I have two options, a pull request script and a post response script. So the post response script runs on my API response. And I'm thinking, okay, how do I author a script here? I have to write Postman script. But I have an AI assistant that can help me with that called Postbot. Think of it as your AI companion in Postman. Then I go to Postbot, and I tell it, write 2 tests, script, one to test the status code, and one to test the response body. You can see that I have a couple of typos here, but Postbot is smart, and it generates the test script for me live. And because I requested for only 2 test scripts, Postbot is going to do just that and generate just 2 test scripts for me. Now you can see that I have a test script for checking if the status code is 200, and I have another one that is verifying that the response body is what is expected. If I come to the test tab here, you can see that I have 2 tests, and both of the tests are passing. So now I can go ahead and save this request. I can call it get giveaways, and save it in an Asher in a kind collection. Now, I've saved this request in a kind collection, but I want us to do something here on stage. Remember, we are doing a giveaway, right? And everyone listening to this session right now can participate in this giveaway, because I'll be giving out this hoodie I'm wearing, a very cool water bottle that people who have been at the Postman stand there has been requesting for. I'm going to be giving that out on stage as well. And I have this very good graphic novel. So this links to an Airtable firm that you can feel. And we are going to randomly select a winner here live on stage while collaborating with Sadiq. So I'm going to be leaving this up for 30 seconds. So 10 more seconds. So the bit.ly link is bit.ly/postman@APIConf. bit.ly/postman@APIConf. So I'll have to swipe. I'm sorry, but I have to swipe now. So you can get the link from someone beside you who was able to scan. Now remember, I created my collection. I wrote some test scripts, and now I have a request that is returning a 200 OK in this collection that is already saved. But this is just me testing out what I have built. Now I'm onboarding my guy, Sadiq, into this collection, and he wants to collaborate with me on it. So I'm like, okay, you need to add an endpoint to do this. And I share this with him. And I'm not just sharing the code with him on GitHub, but I'm also sharing the collection with him. Now to do that, I would invite him to this workspace. I would make him a viewer, so he's not able to modify the assets in this workspace, but he's only able to view. And I'll show you why in a couple of minutes. So I type his email. Because he loves me so much, he has my name in his email. Then I'll click send invite to him. Then he's going to get the invite shortly. And I already got a notification here that's, let me reload this. I already got a notification here that he has gotten an invite to this workspace. And now you can see that this collection has appeared on Sadiq's end, but it has a padlock, which means it doesn't have editor access. But similar to how developers collaborate on GitHub, when you go to a GitHub repository, the first thing you do is you want to fork that repository, make updates to your forked version of the repository, and push that by making a pull request to the repository which you forked it from. So Sadiq is going to come and create a fork of this collection. Okay, so this is taking a while. So he gave this a label, Sadiq Akindobi's forks. I'm going to be forking this to the same workspace. just so it's convenient. Or I'd fork it to a different workspace, that's fine as well. Then I'll fork the relevant environment as well, and I'll click the fork button. Now, this is similar to how you fork a GitHub repository. Sadiq now has this kind collection in his own workspace, and he can make updates to it however he wants. So the first thing he notices is that we are getting a list of data from people, and he's just able to click run and get a 200 OK. I mean, there should be an authorization step for that, but we currently do not have that. So he goes to the code. And adds some code to add like an authorization step. So there's a bearer token requested. He sets the right environment. And it comes to authorization. There's no authorization set here. So when I click send, I'm getting an error code, a 401 unauthorized code, which is what is expected. Then the authorization method selects a bearer token. And because we have some variables already set, we select the auth key. He saves it. Then he clicks send. Now it's getting a 200 OK response that we initially got before, but now it's an extra authorization step. So he has contributed to this API in a way by making it more secure, and I've been able to onboard into it seamlessly. Now he wants to update the source of it. So when you create a fork and you make an update, what do? You create a pull request, right? So now I'm creating a pull request. I'll call this authorization. I won't think too hard about the description. And he can add a reviewer. He can add me as a reviewer. Then he'll create a pull request. Now you can see that similar to how you can see the Git diff on GitHub, you can see the Git diff of your API here. And if you had changed the request body, would easily see that here. So on my end, I would have gotten a notification for this pull request. I can click view pull request. And I can merge it. Now this has been merged to the collection in which it has initially been forked from. Now imagine if there were 10 people working on this request and all 10 of them are forking it. They can all create their separate pull requests, add new functionality to that API, and merge it back to the upstream collection. So if I go back here and let's say the authorization step, it had like a comment around it. It's like, why are we adding an auth key here? Let's use something called Postman vault. You can choose to add a comment by highlighting this. Okay, so they're saying my time is up, but I'm just going to briefly run through. I'm just briefly going to run through this. I'm just going to briefly recap everything I've done because I'm out of time. So initially, when we started with we having a code and we having some documentation in some doc.mv file. And we had to like copy a call request, run that on the terminal, and that wasn't running. Then we moved into a Postman collection, created an HTTP request, moved all of our work there. We're able to invite a collaborator to that collection. We're able to onboard that collaborator. I was able to fork the collection, make changes to it, create a pull request, and I was able to match the pull request he created. So I'm not going to run through all of the sites. So a lot of the examples I've shown now is how you can collaborate with your team internally with Postman, but you can also do it externally with other partners using like the partner, using our partner workspaces or using the public API network. So if you'd want to learn more about some of the things that I've spoken about today, and if you'd want to continue this demo, please come behind there to the Postman booth. I'll be happy to like have a conversation with you and walk you through some of this demo that I was supposed to do live on stage. There'll be a dedicated time for us to do that eventually. And for those who have filled it, I have your email, and we randomly select someone and send you an email during the event. So you actually be getting the things I promised. That was not a scam, but just that we ran out of time. So thank you very much.
API Conference, Elevating API Literacy.